drum is still a little wet. But it says in the Bhagavad Gita, when you perform sacrifice, then it rains. So every time they chant it, it rained. Couldn't figure out how to balance the two things. But we're safe inside now, so we can go on chanting. Thank you very much for coming tonight for this special occasion. It's important to come together on a regular basis just to hear the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and also to chant, because spiritual life is experiential. You have to taste it for yourself in order to rise above the complexities of the world. And there are a few complexities from time to time. What do you think? 2 people said yes. Everyone else is okay. Yes, according to the Bhagavad Gita, it's a science of understanding the different energies of the world. They all have an original divine source. And the energies all have an effect on us, and everything we do has a consequence. This is the law of karma, which is so well known. If you stop anybody on Young Street and say, have you ever heard of karma before? What do you think they'll say? They'll say yes, and then you say, what does it mean to you? What will they say? What comes around, everybody knows. What you do comes back to you. So there's a way in which, as sentient beings, we're well aware of complexities. We're also well aware that as we move around in the world, there's consequences to the things that we do. So is there a way to adjust that? As an example, is there a way to adjust the gain on this microphone? Because it's a little high. Thanks. And the Bhagavad Gita says yes, and in fact that's what the Bhagavad Gita is about. It's for us. It's speaking to us personally, saying that if you'd like to upgrade your lifestyle, there are ways to go about it that won't cave in on you later. Oftentimes I try to adjust the way I'm living and the quality of my life, but after some time, transition comes again and I lose what I have. However, there's a more fundamental and strong way that one can develop one's life. So, in whatever occupation one is in, whatever part of the world one lives in, whatever culture, whatever style one has adopted, so that one has a more profound sense of how the world works, how to work within it, without stepping into the pits of misunderstanding. So this Bhagavad Gita is very important. And in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a discussion of spiritual fitness. As we talk about physical fitness. And many of you look like you're very physically fit, so you must know about it. And there's also a science of spiritual fitness. And how do you stay fit spiritually? Because I may exercise my body, but still feel morose. The mind has its realm, and it also has its way of working according to the energies we expose it to. And we also need to nourish our soul, just as my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, used to say that a man bought a very expensive bird and brought it home and thought this bird deserves an excellent cage. So he purchased the best cage he could find. In fact, it was shipped in from Paris. And every day, he'd come in and polish the cage. And the bird was looking at him like, I think you forgot something. And after a week, the bird was looking at him and saying, hungry, hungry, hungry. Of course, it was in bird language, so he didn't understand. But gradually, the bird dwindled and died inside the cage. So the ancient Vedas, books of wisdom, which are meant for everybody, it's talking about all of us as sentient beings. Say, feed your soul. Make sure you do something to stay physically fit, but also don't live for that. Don't live to eat, but eat to live. And living means to feed the spiritual self within. And when you feed the self, when you feed your actual essence, the essence of who you are, then you'll feel a spiritual strength. And incidentally, today's celebration here is because of a very famous incarnation of Krishna called Balaram. Everyone say Balaram. Balaram. Say it kind of louder. Balaram. Say it really loud so you scare the people out on the street. It's not going to scare anybody. Try it again. Balaram. 1, 2, 3. You're getting there, but let's try one more time. Put your arms in the air. Okay, you got somebody. All right, well that's enough for now. So, Balaram means the highest spiritual pleasure, the reservoir of actual happiness, and the reservoir of spiritual strength. And when we have spiritual strength, we're able, in a very practical way, to make good decisions. This is very important because as human beings, we have this cognitive function. Our brains are always working on a couple levels. One is very intuitive, and the other one, when we take time to solve problems, when we go a little deeper, we strain a little bit more. But we're constantly thinking what to do next. Yes? Yes. So, the Bhagavad Gita points out that when I'm conditioned by lower energies in this world, my decisions will be poor. But when I become spiritually fit, and I have this strength called Balaram, which actually comes from the original divine source of the same name, Balaram, the first expansion of Krishna. Then I'm able to give up petty things. Give up things that are inconsequential. Did you ever find yourself in the middle of an inconsequential argument? One person in front row, okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Did you ever hanker for something that was insignificant, that you didn't really need, and you got it and you were disappointed yet again? There are many different symptoms of the effects of the lower modalities of energies in our lives. But when we become fortified by the highest energy of all, which comes from the original personality, Balaram, then we become spiritually fit to make decisions from moment to moment that actually edify us. We grow, we develop integrity. It gives us a sense of self-determination that I won't be overcome by my senses. Sometimes in poetical writings, the great teachers of bhakti say that the senses are like highwaymen. We don't see many around Canada, I don't think, but I've encountered a couple in India, just in the outback, when they put a log across the road when you're least expecting it in the middle of the night, and then you come out and attack the car, take your stuff. Never happened to me, but I've heard of other people happening too, and so our senses are like that too. They can jump out and attack us at any time. But the strength that we get from the process of Krishna consciousness, which really means to come in contact with Balaram, then we develop our own determination and a kind of intelligence that guides us and helps us, like a mentor helps a mentee. When the mentee is about to make a bad decision, the mentor says, maybe think it over for a minute. This is all coming from Balaram, and it's real. These are forces in our life that we can experience. Sometimes we may consider them to be impersonal forces and write them off to the realm of psychology, but in the wisdom literatures of the Vedas, we understand that everything's personal. Everything comes from a personal divine source. And when we reconnect with that original personal divine source, then we'll feel whole again, because we're small parts of that whole. And when I become separated from it, then I feel insignificant. And I also feel lost. So yoga is the science of connection. To connected to Balaram, or the original source of all power and all happiness. And one will know it for oneself. For instance, is anybody in here hungry? Yes. Okay, you worked hard today in the rain. Has anybody, there's only one person who's hungry in here. He's going to be for an early prasada, but has anybody in here ever been hungry before? Let me count. Oh yeah, everybody. Well, how did you know you were hungry? Somebody sent you an email? And you said you're hungry now? No? A fax? A phone call? They called you up and said you're hungry? What was it? You what? You just knew, right? So the Srimad Bhagavatam says a spiritual life is not defined by religious ritual and so forth. It's actually a direct process through which we connect to our original divine source, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. And when we do, we'll know that we're connecting. Just as much as when I'm hungry, and I know that I'm hungry, and then I know I'm being satisfied when I eat. In a similar way, by connecting with Balaram, the original source of spiritual strength and fitness and happiness, then I'll know for myself that I'm getting that strength, and I'm becoming wiser, and I'm developing the ability to be self-determining in this world. That is, to overcome the lower energies, to overcome the lower self by the higher self. So now I'll take a couple of reflections. Anything that you heard so far that you want to reflect back. And before continuing, I offer my humble obeisances to my eternal spiritual masters, Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and to all of you, as your Vaishnavas, and therefore you're the most exalted and worshipped of all. Yes. There's a microphone coming.
I really like the point that yoga is a connection with a spiritual strength, which is Balaram. That's really
it's a connection.
inspiring.
So Prabhupada used to give the example of a tiny screw. And he would say when a screw is connected to the machine that it was made for, then it has great significance. It's doing something that nobody else can do. But when the screw falls out and gets lost and nobody knows which machine it's attached to, then it becomes insignificant. And one day when I was walking at Govardhan Hill, you don't see a lot of screws hanging around Govardhan. Those kinds of things usually get picked up somewhere. But I happened to feel something hard under my foot. I was walking barefoot around the hill, as you all do when you go there. And I looked back, and there was a tiny little screw buried in the dust. So I picked it up, and I looked at it. And then I remembered the story of the screw, and I started to feel sorry for that little screw. And thinking, what happened to you? Where's your machine that you were connected to? One day it fell out, and now it's just lying there in the dust, and nobody knows where it fits. So in a similar way, when I become disconnected from Balaram, from my original source of strength and happiness, then I become forlorn, easily pushed around by the lower energies of the world. So this connection is the most important, and interestingly, the Vedas say that we're never disconnected actually. It's more of a matter that I've become distracted and I've turned around and I've forgotten my original connection. So yoga is a way to remember my connection and reestablish it. What else? Yes?
So you're saying that just like when eating, it's self-evident that we have become satisfied? I'm using that as a synonym for knowledge. We know that we're satisfied when we're eating. So you're saying that when we have the blessings of Balaram to be in his association in higher modes or higher nature of ourself, that it's also self-evident, or in other words, that we know. Is that correct?
Yes. Correct.
I was just wondering if self-evidence, the term self-evident, would be synonymous with knowledge that we know.
Well, there's what's called in Sanskrit gyan and vigyan. There's knowledge and then there's realized knowledge. Or just like there's math. Any mathematicians in here? You're cool, you didn't study math. And there's math and there's applied math. Sorry, that's my wife, I'm just teasing you. There's math and there's applied math. So there's knowledge and there's applied knowledge. When we apply it, we experience it for ourselves. We actually taste it. And knowledge, that is the definition of knowledge given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is the ability to distinguish between what's important and what's not important. And it gives it in the sense of knowing what's temporary and what's permanent. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Nasato vidite bhavo, nabhavo vidite sata, ubayora pitushnontas tvanayos tattvadarshi. That those who see the truth, that have higher knowledge, they distinguish between those things that are eternal. They're never born, they never come into existence because they've always existed. And those things that are constantly being created and then destroyed. There's a difference between the two. And that's real knowledge, being able to see the difference. Because Krishna says later on in the Bhagavad Gita, Yehi samsparshacha bhoga dukkayonaya evate agyantavanta konteya nate shuramate Buddha. That a Buddha, or an intelligent person, doesn't find joy in things that have a beginning and an end, but actually finds satisfaction in those things that are permanent. So there is a way in which to come in contact with our permanent existence, because we are permanent, and to recognize our connection with our original source. And when that happens, even if it's a glimpse, even for a microsecond, there's so much fulfillment. The Bhagavad Gita says one feels that there's no greater gain. There's nothing else needed. And naturally, there's a sense of perspective that one gets from that experience. This is what yogis are after when they spend time meditating, trying to find the self and then the super self within their heart. But bhakti yogis find it very easily through the process of connecting with Balaram, especially through chanting his names. One more reflection? Or maybe I said it wrong. One more reflection. Just means something that you heard that you can reflect back. Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
What I heard is that when there is spiritual strength, and then the lower energies and the turbulence of life, and the lower energies will not knock you down. You will always make the decision from the highest level, because that fitness in the stream is available.
Yeah, thank you. Nice reflection. And there's a term in Sanskrit which is cognate with the word in English that you'll recognize. The word is shta, nishta. Nishta means to be steady. It's cognate with the word in English stand. You can say understand, or you can say I stand in one place. It means you have a resting place that you can't be moved from. You can stand in the place. When you understand something, you have a clear knowledge of it. You've recognized it. So in the practice of bhakti yoga, there's a way in which one progressively makes one's way to come to nishta. Nishta means to overcome the various obstacles that waylay our connection with our original divine source, Krishna. And these obstacles have definite names, and we would recognize all of them. Like for instance, one of them that's listed is called laya, or sleep. Even though I have enough sleep, when I practice when I do my bhakti practice, then suddenly I feel sleepy. For instance, I feel fine otherwise, but when someone starts speaking, reading from the scripture, or I start chanting, then all of a sudden I go to sleep. How do you know that's laya and not just lack of sleep? Because if someone called you up and told you you won the lottery, you'd wake right up, right? You'd run to the door, hey, I'm awake now. So that there's a way in which I become sleepy because I don't have complete spiritual fitness. And then there's a way in which I become distracted. This is another, what is called anartha, or an obstacle to coming to this platform of steadiness, which one gets from Balaram. This nishtha means that one can focus. This is a very important discipline, to be able to focus the mind. I don't know if you've ever seen, anybody here ever seen Facebook? A couple of you. I noticed recently they put up these little memes where there's a thing that says stop for 10 seconds and just look at the rain coming on the window. Have you seen that one? And it's because most people can't stop for 10 seconds. They keep flipping. And even in the process of Ashtanga Yoga, it's mentioned that there are various states of mind. One of the states of mind is when one's able to focus the mind for about 7 seconds in one place. That's an eternity for the mind, because the mind is called chanchal, it's constantly moving. But practicing to focus the mind on an object that will actually bring me satisfaction is the practice of meditation. And that's in the mantra. Mantra, it's what the mind actually wants. We don't necessarily want, we may need a few things on Amazon Prime, but we don't necessarily want everything, but the mind becomes over-agitated and looks at everything as a possibility. And it becomes distracted, and therefore there's no peace for the mind. So when one comes to nishtha, one has the power of focus. You're able to actually look at the object that will satisfy your heart for a long period of time. And how must that feel, to be able to give full focus to that? However, when I'm afflicted, then my mind is constantly distracted from one thing to the next. And then comes an obstacle which is called, I can't remember the Sanskrit name, but it means that you're not sleepy, you're not distracted, but you just don't care. And then there are several others that have to do with innate qualities. For instance, I may have anger may come up in my heart. And also, my senses might be inclined to pull me in different directions. So these are known as the 5 obstacles to nishtha. And by regulated practice of bhakti, one can overcome these obstacles and come to a platform of steadiness, actual spiritual fitness called nishtha. This is the platform from which one can then advance to higher levels of happiness in bhakti. For instance, ruchi, which means you have a positive taste. It's not that you have to discipline yourself, but you're so eager to practice bhakti, to do your chanting and so forth, that you can't resist it, just as much as, well, there's many things that we could list that you might not be able to resist. You might have your own in your mind. So, yes, this practice of bhakti yoga, and through the connection with Balaram, we can come to this position of nishtha and have a place to stand, where we're not pushed around by the lower modes, which is the constant cause of agitation when I'm moved from my real position. So now we'll connect to Balaram through chanting the divine mantra. So this particular mantra is a mantra which has been chanted for millennia. It comes from one of the Upanishads, one of the oldest wisdom literatures in the world. passed down for millions of years in the Sanskrit language. And this mantra conveniently has 16 words, 32 syllables, very balanced. So you can sing it and apply rhythm and music and so forth to it. And there's 3 words in the mantra, I'll say them. Hare, Krishna, Rama. So we say Rama is a very attractive word. If you become very attracted and excited by hearing this word, it's very natural, because this is one of the names of Balaram. So now, in the science of mantra, when you connect to the transcendental sound, you're actually connecting to the person, the original divine source, which is personal, and the reservoir of all these higher energies that we actually seek to nourish our spiritual essence. So when you say Rama, 1 person, 2, 3, try it again. When you say Rama, when you say it a little louder, you say it 3 times, you'll start to feel happiness. And you'll also feel strength. And this is how you get this spiritual strength I've been talking about, is by saying Rama. And when you focus on the name, the syllables Rama, and you repeat them again and again, you'll find that you'll naturally feel that you're gaining knowledge. You start to see the world in a different way. You have more perspective. You'll become less fearful of the world. The Bhakti scriptures say, Payam Dvitya Abhideshitasya Ishat Apetasya Viparyedo Smritihi, which means that because when I'm not in connection with my higher self, then I start to fear the world, because I think that I'm perishable, that at any minute anything can happen, and it seems very uncertain and scary. But when I connect to my original self, that is connected to Balaram, then I feel this steadiness and fearlessness. This naturally comes. And I'll also be able to not react to the situations, but I'll consider them carefully. I'll have the strength to consider how to make decisions when things happen to me, and not get myself entangled because of reacting to anger or lust or greed and so forth. So it's by saying Rama. Then we have Hare. Hare means the divine internal energy of the Lord. And from that internal energy, it gradually expands the external energy. Everything we see around us comes from original divine source. And this Hare means the internal and the external energy of the Lord's manifestation everywhere we look. And then we say Krishna. Now, Krishna is a word, if you keep saying it, it'll drive you crazy, because there's something about the word Krishna. Try it again. It's mystical. There's something in the sound when you hear it that you can't really say that you've heard any other word like it. And as you continue to say it, your mind will become more and more attracted to it. So in the process of mantra meditation, what you have to do, because the mind is like a fish. Now, I go to Japan twice a year. I see a lot of people fishing. And when they retire, they go fishing. It's one of the big things there, retiring. So they'll stand along a small lake or a little stream, and they'll fish all day long. So every once in a while, I'm walking back and forth, I watch them. And so they throw out a little lure, and then they pull it back in, and they hope the fish will come after it. Sometimes they'll wait. I'll see them there for 2 days before they catch a fish. So the same way, when you do your mantra meditation, you remember your mind is a fish. And you have to keep throwing the mantra out in front of it. Because it wants to go back to Amazon Prime. What was that thing again? Facebook, right? And then there's all these other things that are like a ceiling fan that's going around and around. My mind's and so you have to throw the lure. It's a shiny, beautiful lure that is Krishna. Say Krishna. And you put it and then you reel it back in. You never thought you were going to get a fishing lesson here. And it comes in, and eventually the mind will see the little flash go by, and it'll go, I'll take it. And your mind gets hooked. That's why it's called mantra. Man means mind, and tra means to catch or deliver. If you think of the word tra, it's got that R, it's like a little hook, like mantra. So you have to throw it out there and reel it in, throw it out, reel it in. So that's why we call and respond when we do this mantra. So I'll sing it out, and then you listen, try to catch your mind on the mantra by listening to these divine names of the original divine source, Krishna, Balaram, and Hare. Okay? Say yes. Yes. Say yes a little louder. Yes. Okay, good. Always be enthusiastic when it comes to chanting, because it's like somebody says, who wants $1 million? You were like, you want it? I don't want it. This is infinitely more than that. So if somebody says, you want to chant now? Then you say, yes! Yeah, you run immediately. So this is actually the main price for advancing spiritually. You don't have to have any money. You don't have to have good looks. You don't have to live in a nice place. You can be a slob even. It doesn't matter what you are, but if you have enthusiasm, you can get it. Rupa Goswami says, Krishna Bhakti Ras Bhavito Mati Priyathen Yan Hito Prilabhyate Tata Lolyam Apimulyam Ekalam Janma Koti Sukritirna Labhyate. He said you can't get advancement in spiritual life if you spend thousands of years trying to buy it with money, but if you have enthusiasm for it. Actually, he calls it greed, that you have to have it, then you can get it very quickly. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimata Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namo Saraswate Gauravani Pracharine Shunjavari Paschatya Deshikarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Krishna Krishna